This is part 4 of how I met, married, and got scammed by a gold digger. As you know, I've already had my first date and I couldn't wait for my second. Everything about Caesar seemed amazing. He would send me good morning texts, wake me up, and then he'd be the last person to text me with sweet dreams. He would send me Bible verses. He would share songs that he thought of that he thought I might like. Often these accompanied gorgeous images that he would send in these texts. He'd sometimes send me a little video of himself wishing me good morning or wishing me good night or telling me he couldn't wait to see me at the next date. And I was super excited. I couldn't wait to see him. Now, I came from a very sheltered background. I grew up in a conservative Christian home, and I was the oldest of 3 girls. I was one of these people who just did everything right. I was super careful and very cautious. I had found really early that it made life better when I showed up in a way that was pleasing and helpful. It made my parents' tempers go down. It made my teachers like me. So I tended to be referred to as the teacher pet or goody two shoes or something like that, because I was just one of these kids that just didn't cross the line. I always wanted to know what the rules were, and I stayed on the right side of it. But losing Brad devastated me. I felt like God betrayed me, that I had been basically a good mom and wife, and I had worked hard all these years, and I suffered as a little kid because of the abuse that I went through, the SA that I went through, that I really thought that I had had enough suffering in my life. And I felt kind of owed, honestly. I felt kind of like, I know now that that's not how I feel today, but I kind of felt God owed me. And as a result, I was angry. I was very, very angry at God. I felt like he took something terribly good, he derailed my life and exploded it. Now, cancer did that. I don't think God did that, but I was pointing a lot of blame at God. And so one of the things I decided, because Brad and my relationship was close on a lot of levels, but one of the nice levels was our physical intimacy. That we had a rich private life that way, and I felt really gypped because when he got ill, it just suddenly was gone. I mean, it was like literally overnight, from a normal life to suddenly everything was different. So I went into this relationship with a perspective of, I'm going to try a new way. I had not really ever dated before. I didn't know anything about online dating. Outside of Brad, I'd never had a serious relationship with another man. So I felt like I just wanted to expand that, and that maybe, in a way, I guess I kind of blamed my conservative upbringing for some of the ways in which my life turned out the way that it did. So as I was getting ready for that second date with Caesar, I'd known that it already had crossed over based on his pushing. And so I'm thinking, okay, whatever. But here's the other thing that was going on behind the scene that I hadn't really processed a lot or did a lot with, but it was a really big deal, is that, and you probably know because you see it, is I wear wigs. When I was pregnant with my 3rd child, all the pregnancies for me, I had 3 pregnancies, never went well. I had some underlying like cardiac or heart issue that caused me to have extremely high blood pressure. And with the last baby, not only that, but my heart raced. At night, my sleeping heart rate was 120, and they had me on medicine, and they induced me and had me go early. And one of the consequences of that just difficult pregnancy was I had a massive hair loss. So here I am in my 30s, having this massive shed, permanent hair loss, and I'm devastated. So for many years, I tried to figure out what I'm going to do to cover up this loss, and feeling just so ashamed, so broken. In fact, Brad never saw me naturally. I never showed him what I look like without some kind of a hairpiece or some kind of a cover-up or something. So here I'm going to have this second date with somebody, and we're going to plan to share a hotel room, and how do you hide that? So I decide to text him as we're getting closer to the date that I wear a wig and that I would probably be wearing a nightcap. And he texts back and says, I'm tired. I don't think I can do a relationship where there's not vulnerability and honesty and trust. So if you can't show me what you really look like, if you have to wear a cap at night, I just don't want to go forward. And mind you, this is like the day before we see each other. I'm shocked and devastated. I'm not ready to let someone into that kind of private part of my life. And yet, on another level, I was so touched that he was vulnerable and shared so much of that It felt really like mature and special. So I decide that I'm going to do the brave thing and do that. So I arrive for the second day. I'm now in his hometown in the Minnesota area. And he meets me as I get off the airplane with hothouse roses, not the grocery kind, but really high-end roses. This gorgeous. He looks so excited. And when he brings me back to the hotel, he starts to dance with me in the hotel room, singing in my ear. And I then take my wig off and show him. And it kind of moves into something that's really intimate, yet strange. It was beautiful, but weird. I mean, there's a part of the intimacy with him that always felt performative and not really close. But I'm overlooking that because I'm just so touched with all the romantic pieces of this that it just feels really wonderful. We have a great weekend. He takes me to do some really unusual things. We go to an aquarium, we see some sights, he takes me to his favorite restaurant, and it's just a really cool experience being introduced to his hometown. And I'm looking forward to our final day because I sent him the itinerary of my flights before I arrived, so he'd know that I was going to leave like early afternoon. So I thought we still had the morning and the final day on Sunday, that we could go get a brunch, kind of make it a lazy morning, wrap up our slow goodbye. And I hear him getting dressed. And kind of in a weird way in the bathroom. And he comes out and he's wearing football costume and football color beads and all of this. He's dressed up like a fan. And he says, "I'm meeting my son at a football game at a sporting event. You don't mind if I drop you off the airport early?" And I'm thinking, what? So I'm going to go to the airport now and be there for like 5, 6, 7 hours, so that you can go to a sporting event that you never bothered to tell me. And I shared this itinerary with you, and you didn't say it had a conflict, and we didn't talk about what we're going to do Sunday. But I say to myself in my head, see, that's what you get for not being clear with him. So in the future, communicate clear, and then there won't be this mix-ups. So I pull it together, although I'm pretty crushed, pack up, and head out. We head out to the airport, and he get ready to drop me off. And then he hands me the roses that he had bought. Only he had clipped them and he put them in a baggie, and he said, "Here you go here's the roses, so you can take them home and dry them and have a memory of our first date." And my heart melted. So it felt like that horrible piece of him dropping me off early was suddenly washed away with this incredibly romantic gesture. So the date wraps up and I'm feeling like over the moon. Even though I'd only maybe known this man for a month, I'm feeling incredibly in love with him. And I even at that date tell him that I love him. And he ends the date leaning forward near my ear, and he says he loves me too. So I just feel like I have met this incredible person, this romantic, handsome, professional person who is similar faith, wants the same kind of things, and it's just really an amazing experience. And so I leave that and go home, and shortly after that I find out that he's getting ready to go on a family trip to go to a family wedding, actually, maybe with his mother, and he's going to be out of town for a few days, and that we're going to have an absence. So I'm dreading that, thinking, am I really, I feel so connected, and I'm really falling for this person, and I want to see him every day. In fact, to me, life feels like it becomes colorful when I'm around him, and that when I'm away from him, it feels dull and flat and gray, that I feel like I come alive when I'm with him, and that I go into hibernation while I wait to see him again. And I'm realizing I really hate this long distance thing, that it's going to be a really big problem. So I gear up for him being gone. And as the night before he leaves out of town and he's getting ready for this family wedding, he says to me, "Will you go steady?" And I'm just so touched again by this kind of old-fashioned way that he approaches this. And I'm thinking, yeah, of course I want that. And so that's where I'm going to end part 4.